This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Hello and welcome back to Miami. It is free practice 2, another hour on the clock for these drivers to get to grips with this challenging Miami circuit based around the Hard Rock Stadium. 5.4 kilometres, they'll do 57 laps in the grueling heat come Sunday. And this is a good chance for them to get their heads into the right space, for them to do a bit of long running and work out exactly how they want to approach this race weekend. It was Charles Leclerc who was fastest earlier on today, setting a good time for the Ferrari, and problems for Max Verstappen and his Red Bull. The car seemingly overheating, although they still set a pretty decent time. Jack Nicholls standing by to lead our commentary, and there's certainly a lot of running to go into this second part of the day, but Charles Leclerc, impressive this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it was 700ths ahead of George Russell, and Alex Albon was only 7/10 off the Ferraris, so I think we've all got an awful lot to shake out in this second free practice session. We'll see the qualifying sims, some long run pace, and there's only so much you can learn from the simulator. There is a lot, don't get me wrong, but there is only so much. When you come to the racetrack, it's going to be different, and we'll see what changes the teams will have made and whether the competitive order shuffles a little.
Jolyon Palmer back with us this weekend. What do you make of this track? What do you make of the battle between Ferrari and Red Bull, which seems to be the battle for this season?
What do I make of the track? I think it looks nice. It looks a hybrid of Valencia, Abu Dhabi, Sochi, many other circuits.
I'm now saying we've got to stop doing, because we're just, every session, we're just naming all the racetracks on the calendar when there's one bit that feels like that bit.
Well, no. I think is
give us your top three then, your three hybrids.
I just did.
And that's it.
I was done, and now you've made it into a really big thing, but it's got its own individual character. That's what I would say, Jack. There's challenging parts. Turn 1, people miss at the break point. It's a very short run to the first corner, which might be a feature of the Grand Prix on Sunday. Then we have a really twisty, slightly undulating bit through 13 and 14, a chicane there. People are tapping the walls on the exit of 16 because there's a long straight on the exit there, and another long straight before as well. So long straight, possibility for overtaking, which will lend itself well to that Ferrari-Red Bull battle as well that you mentioned, Jenny. It's been a great dice throughout the year so far, and right now it's too hard to call who's going to be ahead this weekend.
Just a couple of minutes until the session gets underway. Andrew Benson, the BBC's chief F1 writer, is also standing by. What caught your eye from either the last session or in between sessions? I mean, we've been a little busy because we've been on the radio, but anything going on?
Well, Mercedes is the one that catches your eye, I think, today. They've had definitely their most competitive first practice session of the season. Most practice sessions so far this year, they've looked like they're really struggling. Today, they didn't look like that. They looked like they were, pretty close to the pace. Now, we'll have to see what happens over the rest of the weekend, but signs of improvement there, actually, Jenny, I think, from Mercedes. I don't think we should read too much into Alex Albon's, was it 7th place he was, Jack?
Yeah, 7th
in the Williams. Nice lap, but there must have been something going on there.
No, but people will read into George Russell setting the second fastest time, and how Mercedes would love to have found a silver bullet for their silver arrow. I mean, they've been talking about it, we've been talking about it, so if they can actually go out there and continue to perform well across this weekend, they could be back into contention for all sorts of things. Surely we're round 5 of the Formula One World Championship. There's still so much time.
There's plenty of time. There's the longest ever season in Formula One. There's a lot of time. We're only 4 races in. There's a whole season ahead of us. This is the lowest downforce circuit that we've been at so far. We've had low downforce, long straights in Jeddah and Melbourne, but this is slightly lower downforce again because of those long straights, and I think that is helping Mercedes along with some upgrades. So there is a possibility that the picture's slightly blurred. It's helping out with their porpoising maybe slightly, and the nature of the track is helping them as well as the upgrades. And it's only FP1 that we've had, so maybe they're not even going to be that much further up after all of this. But it does look like a more encouraging picture. And yes, with 19 races still to go, they're not absolutely out of it, although I don't think they're going to win the championship.
We'll find out at the end of the season. Right, Max
Stay tuned.
Verstappen's car. Yeah, it's worth it. Max Verstappen's car still being worked on. Valtteri Bottas had a spin earlier on today. His car doesn't look quite ready to go out. There was considerable damage to the rear end of that Alfa Romeo, so still work going on there, but plenty to play for. The sun is still beating down, and free practice 2 is about to get underway, Jack Nicholls.
I would almost suggest there's not really much work going on the back of Valtteri Bottas's car. It all looked very, very calm, and the whole of the rear end was off. So they'll try, I'm sure, to get Bottas out in this session potentially. But yeah, it looked like a lot of work going on. Cars going out on track on the medium tyre. If you want to sync up, we've got 59 minutes and 23, 22, 21, 20 seconds left on the clock. Is this the first racetrack with a cable car over it?
There's a cable car in Barcelona. When was it made? Because the old Barcelona track used to go through the city, didn't it?
What, Montjuic?
Montjuic.
There is a cable car up to the top of Montjuic, isn't there? That's such a good shout. When did they build that cable car? Was it pre or post 1975?
I don't know, and I don't really know where that came from in an instant.
Are you a bit impressed with yourself?
I am really impressed with myself. I can't even contain it. I have got 2 history bods with me in the commentary box, and I've pulled out a cable car F1 stat.
Yeah, okay.
But it might be wrong.
No, I'll have a look. The Téléphérique de Montjuic, when was it built? 1970. So it probably happened. The cable car built in 1970 went over the Montjuic racetrack, used until 1975. Goodness
But it probably
me.
is the second. It probably is the second.
Yeah.
And that could be achievement enough. If only it wasn't America and Miami and wanting the biggest and bestest.
Yeah. 58 minutes and 5 seconds left on the clock. A few cars going out on circuit on the medium tyres. Latifi, Vettel, Stroll, Zhou, Sainz, Ocon, Norris, Ricciardo, Albon. No one else in a particularly hurry to get out on circuit, but it is another hour, and we do tend to see a few laps and then some qualifying runs and then some long runs. And there hasn't been a huge amount of on-track action actually this weekend, because there is sort of demonstration laps, hot laps in road cars. There has been a half hour, I think, W Series practice session, but that's it. We're not having an hour of Formula 2 practice and then an hour of Formula 3 and then a load of Porsche Super Cups going around. So it may take a little longer to sort of clean up and rubber in than a sort of regular race weekend, as Esteban Ocon now comes down towards the left-hander at turns 6, 7 and 8 that all kind of leads into what?
I'm quite excited for this first half hour of this session, just because I think the picture that we had at the end of FP1 with the Mercedes looking quite quick, it's a tantalising prospect. Already the fight between Red Bull and Ferrari is brilliant this year. Both second drivers are in contention, not like in the sort of Bottas, Gasly, Albon days. The Sainz and Perez are legitimately solid as well, even if they've not been right there at the front yet. And if Hamilton and Russell can somehow get towards that mix, we could have a pole shootout where any of 6 drivers could take it. They've got a long way to go and a lot of work to do, but this half hour now is going to be interesting to see in a more representative condition if Mercedes are still there when others start to turn the wick up in their qualifying simulations. It's not going to be this run that you can hear Esteban Ocon on now. It's going to be in about 15 minutes time when they start to put on some soft tyres.
Is a 3-way fight better than a 2-way fight?
Obviously.
I know, but all of your iconic memories of rivalries are 2 people, aren't they? You know, Prost, Senna, Hunt, Lauda, which I don't necessarily subscribe to, Hamilton, Verstappen, broadly speaking.
Yeah, but you're talking rivalries or a fight. Because a fight, you can have... 2010, there were 4 drivers that could win the championship in the last race. That's brilliant. And the guy that won it was the guy that was a little bit adrift in 3rd coming into the finale, Sebastian Vettel winning his first title. That's brilliant. That's what we want, rather than it's either him or it's him. That induces the rivalry because it intensifies the pressure on those 2 drivers. But when there's 6 that can take pole or 6 that can win a championship, I'd love it.
Jenny Gao is down at the Mercedes garage.
I am, and George Russell's just climbing into the car. A little bit late, actually, and they had the car up on the stands, so I just wonder what they were working on. Clearly, he had a good first session. but there's something that they've been doing, and changing suspension setups as well. And actually, George Russell's just taken a little bit of foam padding and just put it behind him. I don't know whether it's going under his bottom or around his back or something, but it's kind of like a wedge shape that's going in there, just to maybe act as a little bit of padding. I know the drivers were saying this track a little bit bumpier than they were potentially expecting it to be, and certainly that wasn't replicated on the simulations that the guys have been doing back at Brackley and back at bases up and down the paddock. So yeah, clearly, even though he said a decent time, George Russell's not 100% happy with how he's feeling inside the car. They are going to put a front wing on there in a moment. They're running the spare front wings just to check that they can get all of that sorted. And Lewis Hamilton on the other side. I think they're doing a torsion bar change at the moment, actually, for both cars. And yeah, they're obviously going to take a little bit longer to get out than we expected.
Okay, thank you for that. Perez was complaining earlier about not being seated high enough in the car at one point in the Red Bull, so another potential explanation to whatever that was going on for Russell. 54 minutes and 7 seconds left on the clock.
I don't think you just slot it in as you're sitting in the car, just like a booster seat, though.
Like a doorstop.
There's got to be a better way to integrate it into your seat, between sessions particularly. And George Russell is one of the taller, if not the tallest driver on the grid. Maybe it is that because of what we heard from Perez and the undulating nature of the final sector. Yeah, I'm surprised they've not just managed to mould it to at least the base of the seat.
Maybe Jolyon, this is down to my poor explanation of what the actual piece that is acting as a little cushion for him looks like. It's very thin. It's kind of, I don't know how to, like an isosceles triangle, but not quite, around the back of him.
Scalene.
Well, no, but
Equilateral.
maybe two of those put together, that would work out quite well. But anyway, it's very thin. It's the pink foam material that they use in their headrest. So that's been slotted in just behind him, and I wonder if there's just a little bit of bumping, because I actually saw one of the Mercedes guys with a seat walking around in between the sessions, going back to the hospitality area and then back out again, and I thought, he's been showing someone a seat, but maybe there's more to it than that. It probably seems to be a sensible option, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't a wedge, it wasn't thick at all. It was maybe, I don't know, 5 mil, something like that, so pretty thin, but clearly just trying to help a little bit more.
Okay. 52.5 minutes to go. Alonso is quickest at the moment on a 32.0. The fastest lap time we've seen is a 31.0 earlier on today for Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre. Lance Stroll has been off the track at turn 17 and carried on. So that's the hairpin at the end of the straight, the back straight, the final straight, which has a lot of trees overhanging it, and there are people on guard at the bottom of the trees to make sure iguanas don't go up into the trees and lizards, because they're not allowed to move the trees or cut the trees because they are lovely trees, so they have to make sure someone doesn't climb up the trees and then a lizard falls onto the track.
Did you know that falling lizards is actually a real thing in Miami? Not now, but in the winter, when it's cold in Miami, the iguanas are in the trees, and because they're cold-blooded, they don't die, but they can't move, and they just literally fall out of the trees onto
So you're walking along and you just get an
iguana might land on your head. Yeah.
That's why it's a serious issue. You can see that at the commentary box there, all those trees that are overhanging. They've had to make sure that no iguanas can get up there. First racetrack with iguanas overhanging the circuit, I don't know. 51 minutes and 20 seconds to go. There was a lizard in Singapore, wasn't there?
We've had in Montreal, there's a groundhog.
Yeah, Anthony Davidson got groundhogged, didn't he? When he was running really well.
I think the groundhog got Anthony Davidson would be the correct way of putting it.
I don't know. Anthony Davidson and a groundhog head to head. I'm not sure who I'm backing, honestly. But yeah, no, it didn't work out well for him. We had the pigeon on the apex in Canada 18.
Canada's had a few.
Canada's rife.
And I've got some news about Valtteri Bottas. We were talking about his car up on the stands earlier in the session. I've just been in touch with Alfa Romeo, and they say he will not be out for the rest of this session because of the repairs they have to do to that car.
Yeah, they didn't look like they were working particularly urgently, did they? And some of Kevin Magnussen's bodywork is coming away on the sort of right-hand side, just behind the right-hand part of his head, in a not dissimilar dissimilar cause, I imagine, but the kind of way that Alonso's side pod came away in that last race, if you saw that, it's kind of like that, but up a little bit higher. So I think they'll have to pit and fix that. Haas.
One of the cooling gills on the side of the engine cover that's just broken away. Little bit of carbon fibre flapping in the air now. And I imagine at the speed, if he picks it up, that's just going to fling off and litter the track somewhere. So probably Haas will call him in and just have to fit a replacement part there.
Jenny's at Red Bull.
I am. Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion, his number one car is up on the stands at the moment. They've had a mechanic actually in the car. Now they're just tilting it up a little bit at the rear end. But they've got the floor, which they're just about to slide under the car and attach onto the Red Bull. As both of the Mercedes go out, actually exactly the same time, so much so that they have to kind of work out who was leading and who was following. But it's Lewis Hamilton that's gone out ahead of George Russell. They're just going down the pit now, and Red Bull are just sliding that floor under the car, trying not to let the photographers see the underside of it, which has all that ground effect work. But I'm not sure what they've been doing. They were struggling with cooling in the earlier session. I'll try and find out a little bit more.
Okay, interesting. 49 minutes on the clock. We've just had a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2, so I wonder if someone's been for a little rotation at turn 8. We'll wait and see. It was Perez, so Sergio Perez has spun and carried on at turns 7 and 8, where we saw Valtteri Bottas end up in the barriers earlier. It looks like a very tricky part. We saw Alex Albon getting pretty offline there earlier on, and it feels like once you sort of lose it, you're kind of always running out of road.
This is the sound of Perez. He gets a little bit wide, and then so the final part of it at turn 8. Bottas lost it at the higher speed earlier part.
Okay, Checo. Yeah.
And Perez did what Albon threatened to do by just getting wide, missed a turn in slightly for the final part. It's 6, 7 and then 8. It's a long left-hander in reality, and you're slowing it down for turn 8, which flings you then onto a long straight. And Perez just turned in a little bit late, a little bit wide, and got on the dirty stuff, lost the rear end. And it's a tricky corner, that. Trying to slow down through two parts of it, and then pick your line, run a bit of curb if you possibly can to open it up. But that's the peril that you face with losing a bit of rear grip, as Bottas found earlier.
Back to Jenny at Red Bull.
Yeah, found out what's going on then. They've had to change the gearbox on Max Verstappen's car. I'm assuming it's a Friday gearbox and not a race gearbox, but it was due to the high temperatures recorded in the last session. He finished running free practice 1 a little early, but that's what they're up to at Red Bull then. Gearbox change for Verstappen.
Well, they'll be hoping they should be able to get him out at some point in the remainder of the session. The air temperature is currently 32.6 degrees, which is about 1.5 degrees cooler than earlier on. There is more cloud over, so it'll probably sort of feel less hot, and as a result the track temperature is down to 42 degrees where it was up at over 50 in the session earlier on. It's also coming up to 5:45 here in Miami, but it's compromising for Verstappen, having to do a gearbox change and another little reliability niggle.
And he had a compromise running already in FP1 with the cooling issues that he was facing, and having to come through the pits and not get the laps that he wanted. And now he's having the same and missing the first 15 minutes at the very least of this session, but likely longer. And some critical running in FP2 as well. This is the part where most of the drivers now out on track. 18 of them have been on track. George Russell, the sound you can hear now, is the last driver to take to the circuit. Him and Lewis Hamilton just on their first flyer on a medium tyre. So Verstappen is missing out on some important running. Then they'll go on to the soft tyre, do that qualifying sim, then the high fuel, and it's a new circuit, so it's more crucial than pretty much any other track this year.
Leclerc has gone quicker than he has managed so far today. So Leclerc sets the quickest... Sorry, it's Sainz, my apologies. Sainz has gone quickest with the fastest lap time of Miami ever. And so it is Sainz fastest at 30.964. Leclerc second quickest. Gasly is third, 0.4 adrift. Then it's Zhou, half a second adrift. Ocon, Norris, Albon, Alonso, Russell and Ricciardo, the rest of the top 10. Stroll, Vettel, Tsunoda, Magnussen and Latifi, the 15 drivers to have set lap times. All of those lap times coming on medium tyres. Currently, Verstappen and Bottas, as we know, the two drivers in the pits, Jenny.
Yes, and Verstappen still not here in the car, and his mechanic just about to climb back in again. Still up on the stands. The floor is now attached, so this gearbox replacement that they've done seems to be doing well, precariously climbing into an F1 car while it's up on stands 2 feet in the air is not something that's particularly easy for a man that isn't a driver, let's put it that way. Anyway, he's managed to get in there now. But I just wonder, they're working fast in this garage, by the way. It's really impressive to see the Red Bull engineers and mechanics the mechanics hands all over the car, just getting it sorted for Max Verstappen, and the engineers looking on. But I wonder why this is a problem for Verstappen and not for Perez.
Hamilton looking very twitchy, sorry, just quickly, coming through those quick corners at 4, 5 and 6, it's a little loose. I guess with all kind of cooling issues or whatever, it can be a little bit luck of the draw, for want of a better phrase.
Could be small differences in components. They have, whilst they've got the same spec, got different components, or they're running slightly different settings on them in FP1, and Verstappen's just took him slightly over the edge, whereas Perez didn't. Perez was quite a lot slower than Verstappen through most of practice as well in this morning's running. Not entirely sure. It's all hypotheses.
Yeah, indeed. Hamilton comes out onto the back straight now, making his way up towards the left-hander of turn 17. DRS wide open. Then onto the brakes. Hit 202 miles an hour before he turned into the left-hander. And then flat out past the commentary box, right up behind the Ferrari, actually, as he comes across the line of Carlos Sainz, who has just done a cool-down lap and is now going again. Hamilton goes 6th fastest. So Sainz, Perez, Leclerc, Gasly, Zhou, Hamilton, the top 6. What is Russell up to? He's still in 11th place. He's just done a cool-down lap and is pushing again now. And Hamilton actually had a bit of a lock-up on that lap at, I think that's turn 1, where he just snatched the front right. And Russell, meanwhile, coming up through the chicane, has really clouded the curbs and had a bit of a slide. That may be why he backed out on his lap.
Russell's going again now. It was a big slide for him, though, in that chicane. Everyone wants to get greedy with the curb. It's so narrow there as you're coming up the crest of the left and then into the tighter right. And Russell getting a little bit too greedy. Mercedes are porpoising a little bit more in this session than they were earlier on. They were obviously very quick earlier on, but maybe they're just trying to reduce the ride height, find a bit more performance.
Oh, off goes Sainz and into the barrier. Another crash for a Ferrari driver. And Carlos Sainz has spun. Coming out of the left-hander of turn 13. Lost it fairly early and then was... I mean, the phrase works perfectly, so I will steal it. Straight to the scene of the accident for Carlos Sainz.
Hey, sorry guys, I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened. That's what he said after Imola Q1 accident with sort of no necessity. Going for another push lap on these tyres, Sainz on his 10th lap on the medium tyres.
Currently the fastest man.
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz, again, like he was in... he was second quickest in Q1 or Q2, wasn't he, in Imola? Yeah. And it's another error from him, another one. He spun already in FP1 at a big spin.
Really lucky not to sliced between the two barriers sort of perfectly.
Yeah, it could have hit the wall then, and he's done a lot of damage to the Ferrari. His year gets tougher with every session that's passing at the moment.
That's 3 races in a row where Sainz has made a big mistake. Obviously, Australia, he crashed out of the race on the second lap, trying to be over-ambitious, making up for a poor qualifying position and then a poor start. The poor qualifying position, to be fair to him, wasn't his fault. There was some technical problems with the car that affected that session. Then he crashed in qualifying at Imola, and now he's crashed in practice here. I wonder if he's feeling the pressure a bit, with Leclerc so far ahead in the championship. Whether he's overreaching a little bit rather than letting it come to him.
The car just sort of...
This is how this might be a nonsense thing to say, but I feel like all of Sainz's moments are kind of all the same. It all is kind of... The back end goes as he's sort of turning in and then he's just gone. And even when I think back to... Was it Zandvoort? He ended up in the barriers at the left-hander of turn 3, and even when I think of his huge moment in Saudi Arabia last year through the quick left-hander of they all seem like the same. the back end just sort of goes and then he's gone. I know,
but isn't that the same with every crash that you see? Not many people just understeer clean into the wall. They are normally spins into the wall.
Yeah, no, I take your point, but it always feels like it's on. It's always corner entry, right? It's not like halfway round or on the apex, or I don't know. Maybe I'm not.
I disagree. I think is the rear end is always the one that's breaking away for him. This one, it looked like it was on the edge already. The corner before, as he was coming through the long right-hander at 12, was he slightly offline? It's a little bit dustier offline. Then he's coming through 13 and didn't let go immediately. He leant on the car and it went in the end a little bit later on. The pattern is they're always the rear end going through the corner.
But that's how you crash a Formula One car.
But that is how most people are crashing. It's just Sainz is having a lot of them at the moment. Yeah, not many people are just washing wide and just understeering to the wall. Is normally, like Bottas, you'd say exactly the same from earlier on, wouldn't you? He had maybe he touched the curb, but
yes, but I wouldn't have said the same with Perez. Anyway, we're getting too bogged down in something that you clearly think I'm wrong at, so there's no real point in continuing the debate. Red flag out.
The pressure thing is exactly right, though, as Andrew said. He was okay at the start of the year in Bahrain. He was solid, but Leclerc was stronger. In Jeddah, round 2, he did actually, if you remember, hit the wall in FP2 and had to stop his running early. It was only a tiny little bit of damage that he did. Both he and Leclerc dinked the wall within about 5 minutes there. And after he was then behind Leclerc through Jeddah in the Saudi weekend, round 2, the points gap started to get bigger. Then Melbourne, he was unlucky with a lot of car issues and he tried to make amends in a little bit of a desperate sort of manner. And with all of these small moments, the pressure's building for him, and making a crash now in a practice session seem like a big drama for him. That's the problem that he's got. With every moment that he's having, there's more question marks, and his teammate's doing a brilliant job in the other car, adding fuel to the fire and the pressure as well. Wow, you can hear the screech of the tyres from Pierre Gasly going through in his AlphaTauri. That's exactly the same point on the track that Sainz lost it, and you could just the same thing happened through turn 12 on the exit. Gasly was right out of shape, held it, then came through the left-hander at 13 where Sainz binned it, and Gasly managed to control it but cut the next corner. It is slippery offline.
So is there there was a discussion that Sainz and Leclerc had a lot of moments last year because they were sort of trying to overdrive the car, and that was sort of the theory, and that this year, because the car's competitive, it would sort of be all right. But yeah, I don't know if you ever subscribe to that theory or what you make of that. Well, because it doesn't seem to be stacking up, actually, you know.
It doesn't stack up, does it? And honestly, they still both make a lot of mistakes. Leclerc crashed from third position in the race in Imola last time out, but he has a huge amount of free practice spins, Charles Leclerc. Imola practice, it was wet, but I think he had probably 3 spins in that wet session, and he got away with all of them. But he's just been piecing it together really nicely in qualifying and, by and large, the races this year. And that's the same for Sainz over the last years as well. Sainz's race performances last year were actually really solid and consistent, but he's having a lot of practice spins and crashes, as Leclerc was. They find they're just pushing each other on so hard. I think they're competitive guys of a similar age, similarly sort of newish to the team. Leclerc's been there a little bit longer. But they're pressing on. They know now they can win a championship, and Leclerc is just squeezing on that pressure by doing a brilliant job, and Sainz isn't able to respond, and he's making these mistakes more and more often now.
36 minutes to go. Jenny's at Ferrari.
Yeah, I find it fascinating listening to you guys talking about the difference of the drivers, the way things are at Ferrari and Sainz, and certainly speaking to him this morning and looking into his eyes, I felt, as a journalist, you sometimes feel a bit mean asking questions. And it's clearly a very difficult time for Carlos Sainz. He's had 2 races on the bounce where he hasn't managed to finish. Charles Leclerc, as you say, doing a great job of things, leading the championship by 27 points. And he said to me, well, these things are every sportsman goes through times in their career like this, and I'm just going through that at the moment, and it will get better. But I mean, this is just my opinion, but listening to them, they felt relatively hollow words. And I think an incident like this on top of what's happened already is just going to compound the issue. And I mean, it doesn't help that every day he comes to the race, he talks to the media, and we all asking, what can you do? How can you find a solution? When are you going to stop spinning? When are you going to be as good as Charles Leclerc? And it's not nice to be a journalist to ask those questions, and I can imagine it's even worse being a driver having those questions put to you every day.
Don't ask them.
Would I be doing my job if I don't ask the questions?
But I think also, with all of this, Sainz he's been good. This is the frustration of it. It's not like Nicholas Latifi's been a long way adrift of his teammate and he's crashing and it compounds the issue. Sainz is quickest right now. In Imola, when he crashed in qualifying, he was ahead of Leclerc. He was flying. In Melbourne, he was could have been on pole, but he had the red flag just before on that first run, and then they couldn't fire up the car, and he made a scrappy qualifying. His pace is not, maybe not quite Leclerc, but he's so close. He was on provisional pole the first 2 races until the last run of Q3, and that's the frustration for Sainz. It's not, but it doesn't seem like it's desperation from him.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because the moments aren't coming in high pressure moments. When Leclerc is doing all he can to get Perez and overtake him for second in Imola, Leclerc is absolutely on it. He chucks it too much into the chicane, he crashes out. That's, it's still a crash under pressure and all of these things, but you see why he's going for it. Sainz was easily through in Q2. Here, with 10 laps into a medium run in FP2, like if you crash in the big times, when Verstappen crashes at the final corner in Saudi Arabia last year in qualifying because he's on the lap of his life and just overstretches, like those are the times you expect these sort of incidents, but Sainz quite often feel sort of innocuous out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's 10 laps in, he's improving on his own session topping time at the moment, and then has the moment. It's like he's demanding too much out of things that he's not able to give, and often no one's able to do what he's trying to do. It's the miscalculations really that he's just pushing the boundaries too hard. He's not necessarily even trying to match up to Leclerc. Yeah, Leclerc is there as the pressure and the benchmark that's making Sainz push as hard as he possibly can, but the moments that he's having, he's just, it's a bit like Leclerc actually in Imola, just pushing the boundaries way too hard in a sort of just way too.
But with Leclerc there was a tangible result there, you know what I mean? To catch Perez, he's that close, catch him, get second place, championship points. That's what this 10 laps into FP2 doesn't feel like a tangible reason to be pushing it that hard.
Yeah, I was thinking back to Melbourne really with that and the way he was trying to go around. I think it was Mick Schumacher, and it was just a huge daring bold pass that he absolutely overcooked. Imola was he had a bit of pressure, or he maybe felt a bit of pressure from the team radio and the rain that was coming, so he wanted to get the best lap he possibly could. He was safe, he was through, and he didn't need to do that, but he was searching for something that wasn't really there. And this is a free practice crash at a really silly time to have a crash on your first run. You're not on the qualifying sim and you're not on the long run. They're the two crucial parts of an FP2 session. He's done a good job on the medium tyres. He did a good job earlier on on the medium tyres as well. He spun on the softs and ruined them. But it's a needless time to be searching for the last 1,000. And I think that's the sort of thing that he's doing. He's pushing for the last 1,000, which maybe isn't there sometimes.
Session will restart in 35 seconds. Jenny.
Yes, just down at Red Bull, and things very positive for them. That red flag actually came fortuitously because it meant they could finish off the work and nobody else was getting any track time. But they're just bolting on the tyres right now. Is Max in the car? Let me just sneak around behind these two cameras. Yes, so Max is just in the car being belted up. The final touches being made to the car after they did a precautionary change of the gearbox. Good work from Red Bull. He should be out within the next few minutes.
Perez had also just crossed the line actually to do a 31.0 just before the safety car came out, so he's second quickest. The order is thus, but it'll all change. Sainz, Perez, Leclerc, Gasly, Zhou, the top 5. Hamilton, Ocon, Norris, Albon, Alonso, the top 10. Russell, Ricciardo, Stroll, Tsunoda, Vettel, the top 15. Magnussen and Latifi, the 17 drivers to have set a lap time. Right, so I presume now we're getting straight into qualifying sims. Everybody going out on the soft tyres.
Looks that way. Busy track as everyone floods out. Great job from Zhou. He's in 5th place in the Alfa Romeo. His teammate Valtteri Bottas not running in the session.
Very unfortunate in Imola, wasn't it? Wasn't it Q1 he was 5th?
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what happened in Q2, just rain or something.
He didn't. It was one lap wonder, wasn't it? And he didn't do the job there and went out. He's showing a lot of potential now. Could have had a great weekend. Then had a clash with Gasly on the first lap of the sprint, and it came to nothing. Doing a good job. Alex Albon as well, still in 9th place, still in the top 10. You still thinking that's a write-off of a time, Andrew?
I was thinking actually a few minutes ago I need to recalibrate that, because I think they're actually showing in signs that they've made a step forward, aren't they, Williams? And him up in 9th again this session, 7th in the first session. Maybe they have made a step forward, yeah.
And that's everyone on the medium tyre. Now, pretty much everyone out on track on the soft. This is the qualifying session, and this is where we can see where the pecking order's at.
Another question for Andrew Benson here. This is from James. Both Miami and the Bahrain International Circuit are 5.412 kilometres long. Has there ever been a season in F1 where two different circuits are so identical in distance, down to just 1 metre?
I have no idea. How sad do you think I am?
29 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock.
To the metre?
5.412 kilometres.
Is that just like a copy and paste job?
Yeah.
Mate, I don't know, there's something wrong. My steering is heavy.
Okay, stand by.
Steering heavy for Verstappen, which was the sort of the initial feeling he had in Bahrain towards the end of that Grand Prix, when the car then gave up. 28 minutes 45 seconds to go. Everybody on track now, bar Sainz in the wall and Bottas in the garage, on soft tyres, so we're going to get a load of lap times coming in. Fernando Alonso is the first driver on track, coming through this S's sequence of 4, 5, 6, and then down to the tightening 6, 7 and 8. And at the moment the best time is a 30.9.
How's the steering now, Max?
No, mate.
Fail 1, fail please. Fail 1, fail, box this lap.
Box this lap. So Verstappen will be back into the pits. So that slight reprieve that it seemed like they might have doesn't appear to be the case. I think one of the Williams has just had a bit of a moment down at the left-hander at turn 16, I believe, but there was a yellow flag out there briefly. Alonso didn't come across it in the end. Whoever it was, I think, must have been on their outlap. Oh, and Alonso's got trafficked there by Verstappen, who takes over the chicane and then sort of... Oh, is he smoking there? He's in big trouble here, Verstappen. I think he's got a bit of drive, but not really.
Mate, I couldn't steer. It's locked.
Copy, Max.
And there's so much smoke coming out of the sort of rear right of Max Verstappen's car as he makes his way down the back straight towards the hairpin at turn 17. Verstappen in big reliability problems here, and I would be rather amazed if he was getting any more running done in this session, to be honest, because that looks terminal-ish for the next 25 minutes. Christian Horner is shaking his head on the pit wall.
Is it coming from the engine?
Yeah, I can't quite work it out.
It's not, it's coming from the rear brakes. The rear right brakes are now on fire.
Yeah, and now he's grinding to a halt. And they're bursting into flames.
Albon level of Williams rear brake issue.
He's about to come trundling past us in the pit lane. It's not going to... It doesn't sound very pretty either.
Mate, I cannot do anything, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, copy, Max. Copy.
Mate, I can't steer.
So he can't... So I wonder if the smoke is a symptom rather than a cause, that because he's going this slowly, the brakes have overheated and he can't get the air through. Jenny's down there. He can't even pull into his pit box, Jenny.
Yeah, he's had to pull up just in front of Mercedes. He couldn't get any steering angle onto the car, so he's now there. They're deploying the fire extinguisher at the rear end, I think. The mechanics have approached the car very carefully. It's the rear right that most of the smoke seems to be coming from at the moment, and they're right in front of the Mercedes garage, so they're going to have to get out of the way. We're going to have to get out of the way so they can get the car in, but it absolutely reeks, as you can imagine a smoking, smelly Formula One car would do. And the guys on the pit wall just looking around. There's still a lot of smoke coming out of these covers that have gone on the wheels now on the tyres. You can see the smoke just channeling out from that, and that is a very stinky car that is not happy. Fire extinguisher goes off again. Now the car's in the back of the garage and the fumes are horrible, quite frankly.
Well, the quick lap times are coming in. Charles Leclerc to the top, a 1:30.044, only a tenth of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Sergio Perez third for the Red Bull team. Then it's half a second gap back to AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. Sainz is fifth, Ricciardo, Vettel, Zhou, Ocon, Norris the top 10. George Russell had to abandon his lap, but he's just on the fastest first sector of anyone, George Russell. He's now coming through the middle sector on the long straight underneath the cable car and down towards the tight left-hander at the end at turn 16. Lance Stroll almost went into the back of Max Verstappen because Verstappen just couldn't turn the car around the left-hander. So we're just getting a replay of Verstappen trying to turn, and he just cannot coming into 16, keeping an eye on Russell's lap time still, but he's got like it looks like he's got enough lock on Verstappen, but the wheels just aren't turning that much. Very, very strange. Let's just watch Russell out across the line, because he could be going to the top here for Mercedes. Perez third, Hamilton second, Leclerc quickest at the moment, but Russell now onto the brakes into the left-hander at turn 17 at the end of the back straight, now gets on the power, comes out towards the line, flashes past our commentary box, cuts the timing beam, and it is going to be fastest for George Russell. A 1:29.938, a tenth of a second ahead of Charles Leclerc, 2 tenths ahead of Hamilton, Perez fourth, Gasly fifth, Andrew Benson.
Wow. It's only, 5 hours since Lewis Hamilton was saying these changes to the car that they brought this weekend weren't going to make that much difference to their performance, and here they are fastest on the qualifying simulation runs in second practice. It's amazing. I mean, I'm astonished, and I think they will be too, actually. I mean, we've got to get carried away. It's second practice, it's only Friday, we don't know the fuel loads and so on, but just as in first practice, this is by far the most competitive Mercedes have looked all season.
They look just consistently good as well, through first practice, through second practice. Hamilton's lap was decent, but Russell again has been a quarter of a second up on him on this lap. He was ahead of him in first practice as well. He's looking so hooked up around this circuit, and it's a circuit where Carlos Sainz has just crashed into the wall and Max Verstappen's just trundled back to the pit. So Ferrari and Red Bull both having issues so far today. Meanwhile, Mercedes are looking like they're on a bit of a renaissance.
Fernando Alonso goes fifth for the Alpine squad, just ahead of Pierre Gasly. Across the line comes Ocon, he goes into 9th place. Ricciardo is 10th at the moment and not improving. Lance Stroll goes 13th. Lando Norris out of the final corner, he goes 6th. So he splits Alonso and Gasly. Perez is on another push lap. Perez coming through the middle sector now, and he's done a 34.6, so it's not a personal best. It's only just over a tenth down on Leclerc, who is also pushing but not really setting the world alight. Out through turn 16 onto the back straight, and he's not improving here, Leclerc. Perez is, and Perez could get right in the mix as well. We could have 3 teams within a couple of tenths here.
Leclerc's done a personal best first sector, but it's still not matching George Russell's,
and he's backed off now. He's only doing 170 down the back straight.
Perez has gone third, not quite within 2 tenths even of Russell. So Mercedes from Ferrari from Red Bull. Hamilton's come through the pits in 4th place, and Mercedes, they went out late on the first run. They've only done 8 laps. They've done fewer laps than pretty much anyone else that's not had an incident. Yet they look quick. Hamilton's obviously not happy with the car, maybe seeking a bit of a rebalance, front wing adjust, and he's going to go for another one shortly.
Perez just brushed the wall on the exit of turn 16, the 90-degree left-hander that takes them onto the back straight. Schumacher and Tsunoda are on push laps at the moment. As I say, as Jolyon said, we'll keep an eye on Hamilton's time. Schumacher missed the apex at turn 15, so that is the chicane, basically. So he's obviously cut that corner at some point. Here comes Hamilton. Across the line now, after coming through the pit lane, down into turn 1. Slightly more acute than 90 degrees, then flicks it left, then into the long right-hander of turn 3 that goes on and on and on up to a very tricky point. The fast left-hander, 180 miles an hour as he turns it into turn 4. Was looking a little bit loose here earlier on, but that looks a bit more neat and tidy. Now he's into 6, 7, tightening through 8. It looks pretty on rails, to be honest.
Not improving through the first sector. His looks on rails, but he's half a second short of George Russell's fastest first sector time. Second flying lap on these soft tyres for Hamilton. It looks neat and tidy, but it's just not quick enough.
20 and a half minutes to go. Hamilton now has backed off as he comes through the left-hander of 11. Alonso's going again. Magnussen is improving. Albon's improving. Tsunoda went up to 14th quickest, 1.6 seconds away from Russell and 1 second away from his teammate Pierre Gasly. We're just getting a look at Alex Albon as he came, had a bit of a moment, and I think that's
Mercedes, that was bad by them there.
So Hamilton was basically coming out of the pit lane, and he got in the way of Alex Albon.
But for the two Mercedes, the top 9, there's 8 different teams in the top 9. Russell in the Mercedes, followed by Leclerc and Perez in the Ferrari and Red Bull, separated by 2 tenths. Then there's Hamilton as well, 2 tenths short of his teammate. Fernando Alonso's Alpine in 5th, 4 tenths off the pace. And then you've got Norris and Gasly also half a second and 6 tenths away. 5 different teams in the top, or 6 different teams in the top 7, all separated by little over half a second. It's really close.
Hamilton's on another lap. He's coming through turns 1 and 2 now. Now he's into the right-hander of 5, the tightening left at 5, 6 and 7. Then he gets on the power, and after the first sector, he's only a 10th down on Russell this time. So much, much better from Hamilton. He's coming down the middle straight towards the tight left-hander at turn 11. Esteban Ocon goes up into 9th place. Hamilton on the brakes. Now at 100 metres. Now through the tight, twisty part. The right-hander of 12 hugs the inside to get him lined up for the left-hander of 13 and 14, and then up the hill into 15 as he backed off. Yeah, I think he kind of got a bit offline with that traffic, I would suggest.
Looked really tricky on the rear end. I think even earlier on from that, it was the rear end that was just going away from loads of small corrections at the wheel for Hamilton. So he did a personal best in the first sector, but then it just drifted away. Those soft tyres have done a bit of running now. Not many others have improved on a second flying lap. I think it's maybe only Sergio Perez of the top 8, and everyone else is pretty much in the pits or looking like they're coming in now.
Jenny, what's the situation at Red Bull?
Well, fire's gone out, which is good. They spent quite a long time with the extinguisher just waiting to actually take the drum off, which is the kind of the protective area around it. They managed to get that off, although they shielded it, so we couldn't exactly see what was going on. But certainly the rear ride is a little naked, and I wonder how much damage that would have done to the floor as well around that area. It's a really sensitive area. All the airflow directions, all the little ridges that they've got that steer the air through where they need to from the ground effect. It's a much more, I mean, it was important last year, now it's even more important. So a lot of the mechanics just down on their haunches looking at that side of the car, the right side of the car, just trying to get their heads around exactly what they need to do. But scenes don't look particularly positive, and Christian Horner on the pit wall clearly wondering what he has to do to get a little bit of more reliability from a near perfect last time out to this time seeing the car in the garage struggling. On the other side of the car, Perez is now Perez is now back in and just sort of sitting in the car waiting.
Avoid the curb. You said avoid the curb where?
Turn 3.
I'm not on it.
So that's the message is broken up a little bit, but Norris is being told avoid the curb at turn 3, and he's saying I'm not using any curb at turn 3.
Probably just bumpy, and the engineers can see it on some damper plots, and then they're probably seeing that it's doing some damage as well then, so telling Norris to be careful on it. It wasn't the curb, maybe just some bumps.
Here's the order. George Russell fastest, a 1 minute 29.9, a 10th ahead of Charles Leclerc, 2 tenths ahead of Perez and Hamilton, with Fernando Alonso in 5th after he improved. Norris 6th, Gasly 7th, Joe 8th, Ocon 9th, Kevin Magnussen 10th. Then it's Sainz who crashed out. Ricciardo, Vettel, Tsunoda, Stroll the top 15. Albon, Schumacher and Latifi, the 18 drivers to have set a lap time. No lap time set by the reigning champion, Max Verstappen, in the Red Bull. Everybody's still on the soft tyres, bar Sebastian Vettel, although they're only returning to the pits now, so with less than 16 minutes to go, might not get an awful lot of long running, but Russell has left the pits on a set of softs. He's going side by side with Vettel into turn 4 and gets ahead of him. So Mercedes look to be very much in play, as you were saying earlier. Whether it's track specific, we'll have to wait and see, but at least it's some encouragement, I suppose.
And there will be other tracks like this one as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they look like they're in play. They are way more competitive than they've been on the last 2 Fridays, and they look like they're a force here. The Mercedes of old, really, with Russell.
So that's totally out of order by Russell. You're on a flying lap and he's on an out lap.
Basically, Russell came out of the pits straight into in front of Sebastian Vettel, who just started a lap, and Russell was on an out lap, so the team felt that Russell should have got out of the way, and I think that's the second time we've had that from this. Was it Russell the first time, or was it Hamilton the first time? We had it a moment ago, didn't we? Can't remember who it was. But anyway, returning to the pits is Kevin Magnussen. Yeah, Mercedes fully... And it's not even like, oh, now they're only 2/10 away instead of half a second. It's like the quickest in this session.
Done very well. It's a big turnaround. It is still Friday, so we'll see if they can keep the pace like it is for tomorrow. But this is a qualifying simulation run. Unless they've dropped a load of fuel or done something very different to how they've run the previous Fridays, it looks so positive. The next question is, can Hamilton find Russell's pace? Because when Hamilton's behind Russell and they're running 11th and 13th, or even 5th and 6th, it's not a major deal. There's some question marks. It's not comfortable for Hamilton, but it's fine. If Russell's going on to win the Grand Prix and be as good as he looks, take pole position, that's going to intensify a bit of pressure on Hamilton. And Hamilton has been off his teammate all day so far today.
Now, Mercedes, or Hamilton says that Mercedes have been doing different things with the cars this year, Andrew, mostly. When the car gets like this and it's quick, I presume you stop the experimentation, right? And you do what's quickest.
Well, it's still only Friday, and I know that in the first session, Hamilton and Russell were running in different specs, their cars. So I don't know the situation this session. I'll find out a little bit later. So read about that on the BBC Sport website, hopefully. But it's possible that they're in different specs here. And then what tends to happen with teams is that if they are, especially on a weekend like this where they're trying out new upgrades, they'll spread as much of it as they can across both cars to get as much learning as they possibly can, and then they'll bring everything together for tomorrow, Saturday, the qualifying day, when it really matters. So I don't know whether that's what's happening with Mercedes at the moment, but it's possible.
Is the rear left on properly? The balance feels extremely weird. Like really, really weird. Yeah, it's off. No, it's off. It's off.
So it sounds like
there's a problem.
Nicholas
No,
Latifi.
I don't have drive, so I don't know if I have propulsion right now. Feels like I'm just coasting.
If you don't have drive, park the car where you can.
So Latifi out of the session. He's parked up, I think, just on the exit of turn 8 at the start of the run down the back straight. No, the middle straight. And he's pulled over to the right-hand side. Felt like the left rear wasn't on properly in terms of tyre, I suppose. Was he on an out lap? Yes, he was. But then he said he had no drive and the left rear is still attached. So, odd one, but yet another interruption of running for everyone, really. Not ideal.
No one's really got their teeth into any sort of long run, and there was only 12 minutes to go when the red flag came out there. So they've got to clear Latifi's car. He's parked it in a great place, actually. He could just be pushed back behind the marshal's post, and it should be cleared pretty quickly. All four wheels look on and pointing the right way. Latifi giving it a bit of a once over, and then he's going to probably walk away. But another interruption, and now no long running for anyone.
Jenny.
Yeah, a little frustrating, I think, for Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. I believe they were just putting on some Flovis onto the front wing of Hamilton's car because it was talked all over the floor, and then the red flag came out, so they couldn't actually sense. So now they're just trying to clear up all of that Flovis from the wing, from the floor, and they'll have to try and go again when the clock starts. But I don't know if they're going to be able to gather all of the information they actually wanted to get. So clearly there is a differential between the setup of these cars at the moment, and maybe they've found something that really works for Russell, and they'll go in that direction overnight, and they'll have gained all the information they wanted to gain, and they'll come onto one sort of unified approach for the weekend.
Yeah, well, the order is thus: Russell, Leclerc, Perez, Hamilton, Alonso, the top 5, Norris, Gasly, Zhou, Ocon, Magnussen, the top 10, Sainz, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, Vettel, Schumacher, the top 15, Stroll, Albon and Latifi, the 18 drivers to have set a lap time. No lap times from Valtteri Bottas, didn't install, lap and broke down. No lap time from Max Verstappen, didn't install, lap and broke down. Valtteri Bottas not getting out on track at all. So, session will resume in 1 minute's time. So, 9 minutes to do a bit of running. So, I mean, what were 4 or 5 laps, if that?
Gonna learn pretty much nothing in this 4 and 5 laps. It's just get a feel for a car on high fuel, make sure the balance doesn't do anything unexpected. The rest of it, you're not going to know about the tyre deg in 4 or 5 laps, so you hope you're not going to know anything about the tyre deg, otherwise it's going to be really catastrophic.
But presumably we can learn a bit from what tyres they're going out on. i.e. if everyone goes out on the softs, that means they think they want to be starting on the softs. If they all go out on the mediums, they want to be starting on the mediums potentially.
There probably will be a bit of a split, I imagine, given it's a new track. I think Russell was just heading out on a set of mediums. I wonder if Mercedes are also benefiting from the fact that was very much a one-lap wonder on the soft tyres. And they, certainly in Imola, when it was a little bit cooler, they struggled to fire the tyres up for one flying lap. The same with Melbourne. I wonder if they're benefiting from the fact that everyone is getting heat to the tyres. I mean, it's 33 degrees out there. The track is roasting. And Mercedes are struggling more in that regard than others.
That's a really good point, actually. That's been, apart from the porpoising aerodynamic problems that they've been having, the tyre warm-up's been probably their second biggest issue this year, particularly in qualifying pace. And if they fix that this weekend, whether it's just because of the ambient temperature, as you say, Jolene, and the track temperature and it being really hot here in Miami, or whether they've actually found an improvement, because of course it was hot at other tracks this year and they still struggle for track temperature. That could be queering the pitch a bit, making them look better than they really are. But again, we'll find out as the season goes on. But I think even having said that, Bahrain's in the desert, it was hot. Saudi, it was hot. Even Melbourne was pretty warm for normal conditions in Melbourne. So I although it's a factor to consider, I think it doesn't completely undermine the fact that they do appear to have made a significant step forward this weekend.
Could be potentially a bit of a triple whammy. An upgrade package on the car, which looks like is worked very well. A lower downforce circuit, which is going to negate the inherent effects of porpoising and the bouncing effect that all the cars are suffering with, particularly Mercedes, and then the roasting temperatures that are allowing the tyres to come in for that one flying lap in qualifying. And they look like they're right there.
7 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. Jenny.
Yeah, just having a look at Lewis Hamilton. He went out on the medium tyres, as did George Russell when the Mercedes took to the track. And they did manage to get that white Flowbiz onto the front wing, front left area, so they'll get whatever data that they wanted from that. I've walked down a couple of metres from Lewis Hamilton's garage to Max Verstappen's, and his car is up on the stands now. He's no longer in the garage. They're working, but not with any great urgency on the car. So bad session, I think it's fair to say, for Max Verstappen and Red Bull.
Yeah, especially because obviously they presumably thought they had the problem fixed, and that's why they sent him out again with less than 7 minutes to go. Sergio Perez has had a spin at turn 12. He's managed to keep going without seemingly picking up too much damage. It was just a brief one for the Red Bull driver. 6 minutes and 40 seconds to go. As Jenny says, everyone really going out on the mediums. Yuki Tsunoda's not left the pits again, nor has Mick Schumacher. Sound you can hear is Charles Leclerc coming down the middle straight into the left-hander of turn 11, and then loops around the right at turn 12. Ferrari, I think, will be broadly satisfied with today. Obviously, Sainz in the wall, but Leclerc's side of the garage, I think, can be pretty happy with how today's gone. I think Leclerc can be pretty chuffed with it. His side of the garage has been good. He topped FP1, he's right there in FP2, 1/10 away from George Russell. His main rival hasn't done any laps in this, Max Verstappen, and his teammate has crashed out, and that puts a little bit more pressure on Sainz, which we all would like to say that you're the team player, but actually that's going to be a good thing for Leclerc, and Ferrari will probably start to galvanise behind him soon if there's a challenge mounted by
Verstappen, or who knows, maybe Mercedes. So it's been another good session for Leclerc, definitely.
I'm going to chuck this one in there because we've had a few questions about it today. I know we're right at the end, and this probably isn't the time that you want to do it, Andrew. But VW, Audi, Porsche group. What has gone on there? We've had a lot of questions about it.
Well, they've basically the chief executive of Volkswagen. You've kind of messed up my attempt to follow the race simulations here, Jack. But anyway, the chief executive of Volkswagen has said that Audi and Porsche have both decided that they're going to enter Formula One. He hasn't given any more details than that. But within Formula One, we know that, or at least we think we know, that Porsche will end up coming in first as an engine supplier. This is in 2026. Working with Red Bull, how the exact details of their relationship with the new Red Bull powertrains project we're not clear on. And Audi are more likely to come in as a team, potentially buying one of the existing teams. They've talked to a number of teams. McLaren ruled themselves out of it earlier today. Zach Brown, the chief executive of McLaren Racing, said that that's not going to happen with Audi for them. Other teams in the frame are Sauber and Aston Martin. Sauber racing as Alfa Romeo at the moment. But just on the long runs, by the way, first laps on the medium tyre for Russell and Leclerc. Leclerc is quicker, but only by 0.03. So again, more encouraging signs from Mercedes that they do appear to be genuinely on the pace this weekend so far.
Leclerc comes across the line again and does another 34.2. So that was fractionally quicker than he managed on the previous lap. Russell comes across the line and guess what? Does a 1 minute 34.2. So the first two laps are both Russell and Leclerc 1 minute 34.2s. Hamilton did a 34.8 on his first lap and then a 35.1 on his second lap, so he seems quite a way adrift. Fernando Alonso has had a reasonable first lap on a 34.4. I think his lap previous to that was the same too. So Russell and Leclerc looking reasonable. Perez had a spin and then traffic or something on his next lap because he did a 37.5.
I tell you, Alonso's looked really quick this weekend. It's not always come together for him. He's had a bit of a few incidents here and there, a bit of traffic, but he was half a second quicker than Ocon on the qualifying runs, and he's again half a second quicker than Ocon, or a couple of tenths quicker than Ocon on this first lap on the race run. And again, it's early days, Jolyon, but if you think back to Australia a couple of races ago, he was very much quicker than Ocon throughout that weekend. And today feels a little bit the same for Alonso there. And it looks like the kind of weekend, he's fifth quickest at the moment behind Russell, Leclerc, Perez and Hamilton overall. He's looking like he could be best of the rest again, Alonso, this weekend.
Him and Lando Norris both looking pretty good. He was half a second quicker than Ocon in FP1 as well. Fernando Alonso has been so unlucky the start of this year. It's been quite incredible. He got swiped by a spinning Mick Schumacher in the start in Imola from a top 10 start. Melbourne, he was looking like he could be on the front couple of rows of the grid and had a hydraulic issue and hit the wall and derailed his race weekend. And even then, the safety car came out at the wrong point in the Grand Prix like it did for Hamilton. Jeddah, he had a DNF with reliability woes there as well. He's been extremely unlucky, but he's been pretty quick in that midfield fight, and he's just started to get a consistent upper hand on Esteban Ocon.
Fernando Alonso with 2 points in the championship. That's the other
what's
side
incredible about it.
Yeah.
He's just been so unlucky. None of it is Alonso error, and in pretty much all of it, he's been really quick, looking for a top 5 a lot of the time.
He was talking about it earlier today, actually, in the press conference. He was asked, do you believe in luck? And he says, absolutely, bad luck and good luck. But he says it evens out over a season, basically. But he says he couldn't believe, he was saying he feels to him, this is like his most competitive start to a season for 10 years. He said to 2012, it's not quite true, because in 2013 he won 2 of the first 5 races for Ferrari before their season kind of fell apart. But they're definitely looking really on the up, Alpine, and he's been, as you say, Jolyon, really impressive.
Spin for Kevin Magnussen, and that is also through turn 8. He's gone earlier in the corner than we saw Perez go earlier. Less than a minute to go. Perez, meanwhile, did a good lap a moment ago, a 33.7, which was a couple of tenths quicker than Charles Leclerc managed. Leclerc now drops down to a 38.4. So which is 4 seconds off the pace, so that's traffic, isn't it? And maybe even a yellow flag or something out there. But Magnussen back on his way. Overall, though, looking pretty close on the long runs between Russell, Leclerc and Perez. So that'll give Red Bull a bit of relief, I suppose, after the car has got some race pace. Not that you would expect anything else.
Well, they got qualifying pace as well. Verstappen was only a 10th away this morning. Perez is 2/10 away and only 1/10 away from Leclerc in this session. They've got pace. It's just reliability that's again causing them a bit of a headache at the moment. There's nothing to choose really. There's much for muchness between Russell, Leclerc and Perez, the Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull across qualifying and race sims today.
All okay, Kevin?
All okay.
Back end going for Magnussen. Looks pretty dirty offline through 6, 7 and 8. You're just a bit too wide and you're toast.
Into the final part of it is the slowing down part through 6 and 7, and then if you just slightly miss the turn in or you get a little bit wide out onto that curb, then you're having a spin, as Sebastian Vettel's just done.
Okay, you're okay behind at the moment. Tsunoda is 5 seconds back.
I'm not sure the car is.
Vettel saying, I'm not sure the car's okay. Looked as though he was sort of getting overtaken up the inside. Looked like he was almost trying to do a cutback and get on the power earlier, and then looped it around Sebastian Vettel, but that was down at turn 11, and the checker flag is out. George Russell ends the session quickest for Mercedes, a 1 minute 29.938, a 10th ahead of Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez third for the Red Bull team, 4th Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes, 5th Fernando Alonso. Norris, Gasly, Zhou, Ocon, Magnussen the top 10. Sainz, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, Vettel, Schumacher the top 15. Stroll, Albon and Latifi the 18 drivers to set a lap time. Verstappen and Bottas not setting a time.
Well, well, well. Were Mercedes just sandbagging for 4 whole races? That is... I mean, it's just incredible to see George Russell and Mercedes topping the timesheets. Lewis Hamilton in 4th place. So, I mean, really, what are you thinking we can expect from Mercedes this weekend, Jolyon? Is this the resurgence? I know you spoke about why, but is this the beginning of something incredible?
It's the beginning of a chance that they could win the race. I think whoever looks quick on a Friday soft tyre FP2 run, which is what we've got now, that's the closest look at pace you'll get all day. And Russell is actually the quickest. We thought the pace that he was a little bit, or was close, a couple of tenths away in FP1 might be flattering, but he's actually gone quicker in this FP2 session. I think you've got to say they're in the mix.
The question is whether this is circuit specific in the way that it was in the olden days with Red Bull at Singapore and Red Bull in Mexico, where you would have a certain track type that suddenly they would be all right on. And whether it's a low downforce circuit, Mercedes can be all right for the rest of the season, and that's what we're seeing here, or whether they have genuinely found something.
Well, the problem, we're not going to know that.
No, I agree.
Next up is Barcelona and then Monaco. So if it is just a low downforce special, this
then
could
we
be
will
a flash
know
in the
that.
pan for
Yeah.
now. So we'll find out in a couple of weeks. For now, they look like they're in contention, and the conditions certainly look like they're suiting them more, given the characteristics we know from this year that they're struggling with. They've also bought a load of upgrades, and they look like they're working.
So at one end of the pit lane, you've got, relative, I would say, joy. They'll go to bed on a Friday night going, okay, let's do what we can do. This is good stuff. We're in a real rich vein of form. We've found something, at least. They'll be thinking positively. Whereas you look at Verstappen and Red Bull, and what a horrible day for them. They've got so much to learn, so much to do, so much to fix with the car.
Well, the positive is Perez was quick in the race sims, quick in the quali sims, and didn't appear to suffer from what we heard or from the lap times he was doing, didn't appear to suffer with any kind of overheating issues that scuppered Verstappen, potentially his whole issue. We'll find out later on. Keep your eyes peeled on the BBC Sport website. But I think that's the positive for them, is that the Perez side seems okay. Verstappen is one of the best drivers in the world, so the car at least is in the right place.
It's not the track that you'd want to lose track time on. A new circuit that has been tricky for many and caused plenty of spins. Verstappen is so strong though, and I'm sure he can recover. If the car's there to do the job tomorrow, I'm sure he can.
No running for Valtteri Bottas at Alfa Romeo. They're trying to fix the car after he spun out in the first practice session. And problems as well for Carlos Sainz. He crashed out of that session, heavy damage there, so we'll see what happens moving forward. But not the perfect day for a couple of drivers. Lots of work to do overnight, and we go into qualifying tomorrow. Remember, you can join us for that. It will be at, I'm trying to do my maths now, 9 o'clock in the evening. I think that's right. I hope that's right. 6 o'clock for free practice 3. Race gets underway, remember, at 8:30. Half past the hour, remember that, 8:30 on Sunday. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Is this the fight back from Mercedes? Is this what everybody's been waiting for? Just maybe. This has been an IMG production for the BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll speak to you tomorrow.